were trying to like eat a burger that was too big but without any hands or something? You're trying to, move your mouth and your throat to try and figure out what was changing shape. Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 50.
Yay.
This is our holiday unit, Cheryl.
It sure is. We're nearing the end of our holiday unit,
We
actually.
are nearing the end of our holiday unit because we're nearing the end of our holidays.
It was just Christmas yesterday. So
Yep.
I was going to say congrats, which is like not your typical Christmas wishes, but happy Boxing Day.
Happy Boxing Day. Mm-hmm.
Don't exactly know what that is, but happy Boxing Day.
Oh, do you not?
Yeah. I mean, it's something about cleaning up.
Well, yeah, you would take like old things that you don't necessarily need or want anymore and put them in a box and then donate them.
Oh, I thought it might have been like cleaning up all your Christmas decor in your house and putting it back in the box. And that is definitely what I'm doing the moment Christmas is done, is like, put it all away. We are done. Let's get this clutter out of my home. So I'm about to be doing that.
So it's festive until it's the day after Christmas and then it's clutter.
Or like sometimes even the evening of Christmas, because we
Oh my
decorate like
gosh,
before
wow.
Thanksgiving at this point.
Okay.
So then I'm like, I just want my space back. I want more
Sure.
room in my living room and things like that. So
Sure.
yeah.
I understand that. Is that what we're going to be talking about today? Cleaning up clutter?
No, that sounds kind of boring. And so instead I thought I would bring up another lovely Christmas tradition that is actually a very
Okay.
old Christmas tradition.
All right.
And that is singing carols.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Singing carols.
Yeah.
So what is it you want to know about singing carols? Because this isn't really a history podcast, so I can't go into the details of why we sing carols because I don't know.
I mean, okay, that's true. Maybe not the why we sing carols, but why we sing at all. Like how can we sing? How
How
can our
can we sing?
bodies sing?
Oh, so like the
Mhm.
physical mechanics of the body that allows us to actually sing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's dive into our pre-assessment then, shall we?
Okay. Yeah, sounds great.
Let's start with what you do know. What do you know about things that are needed for us to be able to sing?
Okay. Thank you for starting with that. It makes me feel successful, so that's really good. um, I know that you need your voice box,
Okay.
which I don't know much about.
Okay.
But since you needed to talk, I'm assuming you needed to sing, because although there are things that are different about it, they're not like night and day different. Like they're obviously connected.
Okay.
I'm guessing it might also be related to when we talked about whistling,
Mm-hmm.
like about how it's all about the shape that the air is going through.
Okay.
And that's how you can make the different notes in whistling, make it like the pitch go up or down.
Okay.
So I'm guessing like there's something related with that and with singing and your pitch going up and down.
Okay. And what thing do you think you're changing the shape of to make that happen?
Your throat, maybe?
Sorry, you got to watch this on YouTube because Cheryl was just like doing this. I don't know how to describe this. It looked like you were trying to like eat a burger that was too big, but without any hands or something. You're trying to, move your mouth and your throat to try and figure out what was changing shape. That was pretty good.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sorry, I got distracted. So
It's all good.
what is it that's changing shape?
I think your throat
Okay.
or the back of your mouth. Yeah, throat, back of your mouth.
So like a part that you could, if you didn't have a gag reflex, you could touch with your finger Like that part of your throat? Oh my gosh, these faces are so great.
I'm trying to like figure out where in my body is moving when I should just sing it like that. Oh, see, I do open my mouth, but I don't think you have to because I feel like you could still successfully sing a low note or a high note with like different without doing it. But I think naturally we do open our mouths more and less when changing notes.
Okay, so to make the tone, you don't think we need to open our mouth. So there's something else changing, is what you think.
Well, I don't open our mouths more or less because I think you could like sing a low note or a high note and hit and have your mouth open the same. But
Mm-hmm.
I think you're more successful at singing well when mouths are open in different ways.
Okay.
But
Okay.
that's also because it has to do with pronouncing the words. So
Sure.
there's that piece of it as well. Um, well, I took voice lessons and we
Okay.
did talk about lots about it coming from your stomach, not from your chest, which is like the classic choir thing that you learn is like
Mm-hmm.
don't breathe from your chest. You breathe like deep from your stomach. I
Mm-hmm.
also learned in order a way to make sure that your high notes don't crack is to send more air through at a time
Okay.
and that adds more strength to the notes.
Okay.
Um but all of this is around like I don't actually know how the voice box works at all. I'm not confident I know where it is. I
Okay.
mean it's like probably where the noise comes from like somewhere in in here. I don't
Okay, for those of you who can't see, she's sort of gesturing around the neck, but she's moving her hand back behind her head and then kind of in front of her neck, but not really, and back and forth. This is the motion
I
Cheryl is
don't know
making.
where it is.
Okay.
Somewhere in your head. Um, I mean, air has to pass through it.
Okay. Air is
Is the
required to
voice
pass through it.
box real?
Is the voice box real? Now she's questioning whether, okay.
Yes. Because now I'm like, well, where would it be? How big is it? We probably need to do a separate lesson just more specifically on that since this is about singing, but I would love some amount of information of
Okay.
the voice box.
Well, what the voice box is, whether or not it's real. If it is
Yeah.
real, where is it? If it's not
Yes.
real, where is it pretending to be?
Yeah.
Mhm. The body structure formerly known as the voice box.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts about how we make singingness?
I think a lot of it has to do with air because I think that's the big difference between singing and talking is like that control over the air.
What do you mean control over the air?
Well, like I was saying, like how fast you send air out or the shape that your throat and your mouth is when the air is going through, I think is like a big difference between talking and singing.
Okay.
It's like successfully controlling those things to hit the notes and
So we are
all
not
those things.
controlling those things when you're talking.
Not to the same degree because you don't have to hit an exact note and you
Okay.
do when you're singing.
Okay. But it's the things in your mouth and the shape that you're controlling.
I think that's a big part of it.
Okay. But maybe not all of it.
Well, I think your voice box still like contributes to it.
If it's real.
I can't believe I asked that question.
All right. Well, we've got some place to start from. Are you ready to figure out what's actually going on?
Yeah, like does the voice box actually exist?
Should we start there?
Yeah.
It does actually exist.
Okay.
It's not made up. It's not pretend. There really is a voice box.
Okay, how big is it?
It depends on the person.
Okay, like on average. Like an
I don't know how
inch?
to, sure. Yeah, like 2-3 centimeters, something like that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. And you've seen voice boxes, at least from the outside. I don't know if we can see
Are you
mine very well.
serious?
The Adam's apple, that's your voice box.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if
Got
you
it.
feel in your neck, you should be
Yeah,
able to
that
feel
spot.
there's like a
Mhm.
bulge. And if you're
Yeah.
really good, this is going to be super awkward. You can feel sort of like it's almost like a V shape where it comes
Mhm.
together on the top.
It makes me squeamish to touch it a little
Okay.
bit, so I'm like, I wanna
Okay.
touch it and find the and then I'm also like, "Ooh."
Okay. Well, then you may not like some of what we're about to do.
No, that's fine, I just don't wanna touch it.
Okay.
Oh, fine, we'll do whatever. This is learning.
Okay. So your voice box actually has an official anatomical name. It's called the larynx. Have you ever heard
Oh,
of the
yeah. Yeah,
larynx?
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Which also, this will make a little bit of sense. When you lose your voice, what do you call that?
Laryngitis?
Laryngitis. Yep.
Yeah.
And an itis just means inflammation of. So there's lots and lots of
Oh,
itises out there, right? And so the laryngitis is an inflammation of the larynx.
that totally
That's it.
makes sense.
Right? Yeah, it makes sense. There's something, I mean, and that could be lots of things that cause that, but like it's just not doing so well, right? So
Yeah.
there you go. So that's the voice box, Adam's apple, larynx, all the same thing. Inside that, and there's cartilage and there's all sorts of stuff, but it's sort of at the top of your windpipe, which you may have heard of, which is actually called
Mhm.
the trachea,
Oh, yeah.
okay, which leads down to your
Lungs.
lungs. There we go. Okay. You're like, oh, I'm supposed to answer. So it leads down to your lungs. So just like you said, air is very important. So air does go in and out, and that's kind of a big deal as far as being able to sing and speak for that matter,
Yeah.
and breathe to be able to be alive. So all of those things, it's good and it's helpful for that. Inside your larynx, you have your vocal cords, which you've probably heard of.
Mhm.
Okay. The vocal cords are more closely like officially known as like your vocal folds. And you kind of have like two that are kind of in a pair next to each other. And
Hmm.
they can open and close. And they can also be stretched thin and pulled tight to be shorter. So if you're like looking at me, right, and my voice box is like here-ish, about mid neck, my vocal folds go this way. So if like you take two fingers, right, your pointer finger and your next finger, and you point them towards your throat, and that
Yeah.
line in between your two fingers, that's the same line as would be between your two vocal folds.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, also, I can see where they wouldn't call them vocal folds because that's not as good of, like, branding as vocal cords. So,
Mm,
yeah.
true. Yeah. It's a good thing that they had a good marketer there, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then what those do is like when you are breathing in and out, they are open. But when you are not breathing and say swallowing, they close so that you don't like get stuff down your windpipe. Like if you're swallowing something like water
Oh,
or food.
yeah. Isn't that weird, by the way, that, like, that's the same spot where, like, water and food goes?
I mean, it is a little
It's
bit.
pretty weird.
It is a little bit. And actually, you technically have something else. It's called the epiglottis that kind of comes down and covers the top of the trachea. And then you also have those vocal folds that close. So you've got like two
Mm.
things that try and help protect things from going. But that's why you can have things, and they say it goes down the wrong tube or the wrong pipe,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And literally it's doing that because your trachea is in front and then your esophagus, which is the one that goes to your stomach, is right behind it. And so it literally are two tubes like right next to each other.
Interesting.
Yeah. So as air is moving through those, they open a little bit and vibrate. And those vibrations do kind of like you were talking about with whistling. They change the shape, which changes how the air moves, which changes the pitch of what you're doing, like what sound you're making.
That's so cool. That makes sense. Yeah.
And it's in line sort of with what you were saying already.
Oh my gosh. Yay.
Yay. Now, what I'd like to do, Cheryl, is I'd like
Yeah.
to show you a couple of videos of people's actual voice boxes and their vocal folds to see what they do as they change pitch one male and one
Yes.
female. You
I'm
okay with
so
that?
excited. Yes, that sounds
Okay.
great. And as you're queuing that up, I'm going to remind our listeners, if you're listening to just the podcast, hopefully you've already switched over to watching us on YouTube to see all of my weird gestures and also our Christmas garb and Ryan's weird Grinch Santa hat. But now you can also see Ryan screen share something that looks so gross and kind of like a Star Wars monster, maybe a little bit. So maybe don't actually go over
Yeah.
to YouTube, but you can hear me be grossed out. So
Yeah. Okay. So here's what you're looking at here. Up and down with that little kind of crack in between. Those are that's that space like I had with my two fingers, and that space goes down to the trachea. So you're looking down the throat. Okay. And the two on the two sides of it, those are the vocal folds or the vocal cords. There's one on each side there. You see
they look
those?
like long teeth, but I believe
They
you.
do kind of look like long teeth. And as soon as I unpause this, though, you're going to see them start to move a little bit, and you're going to hear the tones that they make.
I'm so excited.
You ready?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you notice so it starts with a high pitch and then it goes to a low pitch. So notice what happens to the shape of those two vocal folds as the pitch lowers.
Okay.
You see that?
Yes, and I actually guessed in my head correctly which was gonna be which with the high and the low. So when it started high,
Mm-hmm.
the it was open more like her trachea was open more and the folds were stretched
Mm-hmm.
out longer.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time they were like also opening and closing.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the note went down,
Mm-hmm.
um everything got a little shorter and squattier
Mm-hmm.
and more condensed.
Mm-hmm.
Which I would totally guess because you feel like you're straining yourself when you're trying to hit a high note. And when you try
Mm-hmm.
to hit a low note, you like kind of like
Like
scrunch
crunch
up.
up.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. You ready to see another one?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. So that was female. This is a male.
Also gross. Whoa.
You want to see it
It
again?
just
Here we
looks
go.
like it's going to hit you.
And
You
you
know what
see
else was interesting here
what else is
is that
interesting?
on the first one,
Mhm.
the gap between the folds was greater and the sound she was making was more of an open sound, like a ah sound. And on
Mhm.
this one, he sounded like more of like a hum, closer to a
Mm.
hum sound.
Mhm.
And when it started low, there wasn't even a gap between the whole folds until it got higher and they stretched and stretched and stretched. And then you saw a
Mhm.
little bit more of a gap in the
Mhm.
opening and closing.
Yeah. Good observation, Cheryl.
Thanks. This is so cool.
Yeah. And so the difference then, you also talked about a little bit the difference between like talking and singing, right? And you're right that singing requires more air. You talked a little bit about that. And it's sustained,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's not just like making a few little sounds, it's continuing to make a sound. I have no idea if that sounded any good or not, but it was like much more, like in between words, you don't continue to make sounds usually,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're like, but even that, if you think about it, like when you go, is almost like singing
Yes. It's like
in a lot
humming.
of ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
like humming, right? Humming is kind of like singing with your mouth closed,
Yep. What I
right?
always say.
That's what you always say. It is what you always say. Yep. But that's sort of the last piece. And you talked about this as well. The shape of your mouth does make a difference. And actually, technically, the shape of the rest of your kind of not face, but your mouth, the back of your throat, which is called the pharynx, not to be confused with the larynx, and your nose and your nasal cavity and all of those things, which is why one person's voice can sound different than someone else's. I mean, you can have different sized vocal cords and those things as well, but That's kind of all of those pieces going together. So when you're singing, you're doing all of those things. You're vibrating that air and you're controlling it really intentionally with what pitch, and then stretching your vocal cords or relaxing them or squishing them down to change your pitch. All of those things, pretty much like you said.
That's so cool. I also, side thought, wonder if that's part of why when people sing, sometimes you don't know where they're from or like what accent they have when they
Mm.
speak. Um, because I wonder if it's more of just like this is what singing sounds like and less of like how you learn to pronounce words. It still comes through, but there's times
Mm-hmm.
where you've heard a singer and then you hear them talk and you're like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were British," or something like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's I wonder if it's just because it's really more like about the anatomic elements.
Anatomical.
Great word. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It could be. That one I don't know. I'd have to do some more research on. It could also be a psychological thing too. The way that we hear different sounds
Hmm.
could be different when we hear it melodically, or even when we pronounce things. We tend to pronounce things sometimes differently when we sing than when we speak.
That's true.
Not
Yeah.
always, but sometimes. I think I'm thinking with English, right? So if we're just hearing English, because that's my language that I speak, and I think it's the one that you speak as well.
Pretty sure.
But there are many more languages other than English out there. But with English, I think of like a country song. You tend to hear that accent a lot more than most other accents, at least that I can think of.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's just because, part of, I think, country is leaning into that too.
Yes.
So you're
Yes.
intentionally trying to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Interesting. We may have to do something about accents at some point too. And now it's time for your quiz.
That's
Not so
what I think
excited,
about
huh?
it.
Yeah, with the thumbs down, huh?
Yeah, but also then I did demonstrate what I learned. So also that should count in addition to not approving of your quizzes.
I'll give you extra credit. All right, first question. Is the voice box real?
Yes. But it is actually called the larynx, not the voice box, Ryan.
Well, look at that. You answered the second question.
Heck yeah, I did.
What is the anatomical name for the voice box? The larynx. Very good. Very good. Question number 3. Where can the larynx be found?
In your Adam's apple.
It is the Adam's apple. Yep. And you're pointing to it. Nice job.
Yeah.
Good job. How do we change the pitch of the notes that we sing? What's happening in the larynx?
What's happening is that it is the vocal folds are stretching longer when the pitch goes up and kind of like condensing and closing a little bit more when the notes go lower.
Nice job. And finally, this is a 2-part question. You ready for a 2-part question?
Yes.
Okay. What is your favorite Christmas carol?
Oh gosh. I have a very hard time with favorites.
A favorite.
But the first thing that came to mind was the Carol of the Bells.
Okay. And the second one is, can you sing a part for us?
Yes, I have it memorized.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Hark how the bells, sweet silver bells, all sing to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, ding dong, that is our song. With joyful ring, one sings again. Blah, 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 blah. And then you could tell I messed up a line there, but it's been a minute since I learned.
I mean, I couldn't tell, but that's great.
Well, I said one sings to. So
is that what it was? Well, I feel like that's the way I hear that song most of the time. So it sounded normal to me. Nice job. So why don't you pack up your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks? You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science, or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
Ah! The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.